Hello everyone, this is Maki. One of the biggest charms of the Gundam series is its incredibly detailed world. Today, I'd like to break down some of that world building in a way that's easy for newcomers to understand. Of course, I have also designed this program so that long-time fans of the series can enjoy it as well. Now then, in episode 4 of GQuuuuuuX, we witnessed an important moment that stands out in the history of Gundam. This moment was the appearance of the word AMBAC. During a clan battle, Ixabi saw a Gelgook fighting with wires and reacted with surprise asking, "Can AMBAC really make that kind of movement possible?" So what exactly is AMBAC? Today we'll take a closer look at this term. And just a quick announcement. I'm currently offering channel memberships as a way to support my work. For just 99 cents a month, you can get a name badge and comment stamps. Alright, let's begin our analysis of AMBAC. Let's start by looking at how this term came to be. This story starts in the real world. In 1981, after the first Gundam TV anime was finished, a book called Gundam Century was published. I even own a reprint of it. It's a really fun read. This book was written by Shigeru Morita. Surprisingly, when it was first released, it was not an official publication. It was a fan-made book that was published independently. Even though the title includes the word Gundam, it's pretty wild that such a book could be published. It was only possible because anime as a genre was still taken lightly by society at that time. Mr. Morita later joined Sunrise and began to work on the Gundam series, doing scenery design and technical supervision. He is still actively involved today, coming up with new ideas and settings. For example, in Seed Freedom, the battleship Millennium is equipped with a bow-mounted weapon designed for ramming attacks. Mr. Kimitoshi Yamane, who was in charge of the design, said in a magazine interview, "I received a request to add the ramming weapon to the battleship, but I couldn't come up with a good design without understanding why such a weapon was needed in the first place. So I asked Mr. Morita for advice." In response to Yamane's question, Morita proposed the idea that the weapon was designed by a radical faction within SAF to attack space colonies that were ideologically opposed to them. And so the battleship Millennium was born. Mr. Morita is truly an active and central part of the Gundam series world-building team, even now. However, Gundam Century was still an unofficial book. The term AMBAC introduced in that book had never actually been spoken out loud by a character in an anime until recently. Many anime and games had scenes that hinted at or contained elements inspired by AMBAC. But the general consensus among fans was that AMBAC is almost treated like it's official, but technically it's still an unofficial term. However, in the GQuuuuuuX anime, the word AMBAC was finally spoken out loud by a character. Even Mr. Morita himself was surprised by this moment. Let's take a look at what he wrote on next. "I never thought I'd hear the word AMBAC spoken by a character." He also shared another comment. "AMBAC is a term I first introduced in Gundam Century, which was published in 1981. This photo is from the reprint edition. I was still a student when I wrote that book. I never thought I'd hear that word on TV 44 years later." Episode 4 of GQuuuuuuX truly delivered a moment that will go down in Gundam history. AMBAC may have existed in a kind of unofficial gray area, But it's still a hugely important concept that has supported the entire Gundam universe behind the scenes. Director Kazuya Maki of GQuuuuuuX reached out and brought this hidden pioneer into the official world. Well, let's take a look at what AMBAC actually means in the world of Gundam. It's short for Active Mass Balance Auto Control. This is a technology that allows mobile suits to control their posture in space by swinging their arms and legs. Before mobile suits came along, combat vehicles like spaceships relied on firing propellant from thrusters to create a reactive force for attitude control. However, this method had one major drawback. It consumed an enormous amount of fuel. For example, a 180-degree turn performed in about 2.5 seconds would burn through all the fuel in just 30 maneuvers. Unlike on Earth, spacecraft in space don't experience atmospheric drag, so at first glance, simpler shapes seem better for movement. But that same lack of drag also means that changing direction requires an enormous amount of energy. To the untrained eye, the arms and legs of a mobile suit may seem unnecessary. But by rotating one limb at about 100, the mobile suit can perform a 180-degree turn in about 3 seconds. One of the great advantages of AMBAC is that it allows for these directional shifts without using any fuel at all. That's a big difference between traditional space weapons and mobile suits. There's a great example of the AMBAC principle in the MS-SIGRU series. Although it's actually a scene where the pilot can't control the suit, the depiction of AMBAC is incredibly impressive. The pilot manages to rotate the body without using the engines. The Zoku that appears in this scene is actually equipped with equipment designed for use on the ground. Of course, the thrusters are also designed for terrestrial conditions and not ideal for space. Nevertheless, the Zoku somehow manages to change direction in space by swinging its limbs. Of course, since AMBAC requires very delicate control techniques, the pilot in this scene ends up not managing the spin properly. In fact, AMBAC is supposed to be supported by computer-assisted programs to handle these complex movements. It's extremely difficult for a human pilot to control AMBAC perfectly by hand. AMBAC is certainly a breakthrough technology, but it's not possible to perform every maneuver with AMBAC alone. That's because mobile suits often have weapons mounted on their limbs. Since they were designed as military weapons, this is only natural. For this reason, auxiliary engines are usually installed all over the body. In the Gundam series, these small auxiliary engines are called apogee motors. And although mobile suits are designed based on the human form, they are not human. There is no rule that says it has to have the same structure as a human. So it's quite common to add movable AMBAC components in areas other than the arms and legs. By the time of Zeta Gundam, mobile suits began to have wing-like parts called wing binders and tail stabilizers. In GQuuuuuuX, the engines on the back of the mobile suit also extend outward from the body. At this point, there is no official material that explicitly states the thrusters on the back of GQuuuuuuX are designed for AMBAC. However, since Ixabi specifically mentioned the word AMBAC, it's very likely that the back thrusters on GQuuuuuuX are meant to support AMBAC-based movement. It's also important to note that AMBAC is not limited to the use of arms and legs. The Mobile Armor L method first Gundam doesn't have any limbs that resemble arms or legs. Just looking at it, you might think that it couldn't use AMBAC at all. but in fact it has internal, rotating components. By using them, it's able to perform AMBAC maneuvers. Now that we've gone over all this, I think you enjoyed the fight scenes in episode 4 of GQuuuuuuX even more if you watch it again. We've seen that the use of limbs for AMBAC-based directional control is the standard for mobile suits. However, the gal group piloted by Shikotans at a speed that AMBAC alone shouldn't be able to achieve. That's why Ixabi was so surprised by what he saw. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the story of GQuuuuuuX continues. It's not only drawing from the universal century elements created by Mr. Yoshiyuki Tomino, but also incorporates the concepts of Gundam Century brought to life by Mr. Shigeru Morita. What kind of surprises will they show us next? Thank you for watching until the end. I'll see you in the next episode.